Imagine finding out that the exact same mathematical formula a Wall Street hedge fund manager uses to compound billions of dollars is, well, it's the exact same biological formula your brain needs to finally become fluent in a second language.
Oh, yeah. It is a wild concept to wrap your head around.
It totally is. And, it's really fascinating how we humans tend to just completely compartmentalize our lives. Like, we put our physical health in one box over here, our relationships in another box over there, our finances in a completely different drawer, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And then our education, our learning is just shoved in some dusty filing cabinet in the back. We treat them like they're entirely different universes, like they operate on entirely different laws of physics.
We really do. We act like they don't overlap at all.
Exactly. We tend to think of managing our money and managing our learning as two completely unrelated skill sets. But what if they aren't? I mean, what if the strategies you use to build financial wealth are the exact same strategies required to build lasting knowledge?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, treating your brain like a financial portfolio is an incredibly profound shift in perspective.
Yeah, how so?
Well, we usually think of learning, especially language learning, as this abstract, deeply academic pursuit, like it's a chore.
Oh, definitely. The flashcards, the endless repetition.
Right, exactly. It's something you do with grammar books, and it feels completely detached from the real world. But when you break down the actual mechanics of how the human brain acquires, retains, and retrieves information, the parallels to financial markets are incredibly striking.
It's kind of mind-blowing once you see it.
It really is. And it completely changes the game for you as a learner. It takes the frustration out of the process, honestly, because it shifts language learning from being this vague, never-ending mountain you have to climb into a strategic, measurable investment.
Then that makes it tangible.
Precisely. You stop asking, why am I not fluent yet? And you start asking, how is my portfolio performing today?
I love that. And that is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are throwing out the traditional grammar books and looking at the process of learning English strictly through the lens of a banker.
Time to put on the banker suits.
Exactly. The core aha premise we are unpacking today is that the exact same principles professionals use to manage wealth are the keys to managing your language learning.
Yeah.
It's basically a brilliant shortcut to understanding how to actually achieve fluency without burning out or hitting those maddening plateaus.
Yeah, those plateaus are where most people just give up.
For sure. So here is the roadmap for today. We are going to extract 3 major financial concepts from our sources: inflation, compound interest, and asset allocation, and apply them directly to your neural pathways.
And that starts with looking at the baseline. Because in finance and, in learning, before you can talk about aggressive growth, you first have to stop the bleeding.
Right, you have to protect what you already have.
Exactly. Which brings us right into the concept of inflation. In the financial world, the mechanism of inflation is something we are all pretty familiar with, right?
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, we all know it too well.
Over time, prices go up, and the money sitting in your wallet buys less and less.
Like, a cup of coffee costs $1 one year, and then 5 years later, it costs $3.
Yeah.
Your physical dollar didn't change at all, but its power in the real world dropped significantly.
That's the perfect example. And the argument here is that the exact same invisible force is attacking your English skills right now.
Okay. That is slightly terrifying.
It is. We have these 2 key vocabulary concepts from the source material to help us understand this: purchasing power and erode. In finance, inflation slowly erodes your purchasing power.
It eats away at it.
Yeah. And in language learning, if you reach a certain level of fluency and then just stop, like if you decide to take a 6-month break and just coast, your language skills do not magically freeze at that level.
They don't just wait for you to come back.
Nope. They suffer from English inflation. Doing nothing literally erodes your language purchasing power.
Wait, language purchasing power? So you are talking about, like, my ability to afford a complex conversation, or maybe by the understanding of a fast-paced movie without relying on subtitles.
Yes, that's exactly it. Your fluency is a currency that buys you real-world comprehension. And if you aren't actively investing, that purchasing power is eroding.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason this happens is deeply biological. The human brain is just this ultimate efficiency engine. It operates on a strict use it or lose it policy.
Right, I've heard that before.
If you stop using a specific set of vocabulary or a complex grammar structure, your brain basically assumes you no longer need it. So it physically begins pruning those neural pathways to save energy for things you actually do use daily.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think this is where a lot of learners get totally tripped up. It's like stuffing cash under your mattress.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. You put your money there, and you think it's perfectly safe because you aren't actively spending it. You think, I studied that past perfect grammar rule for 3 weeks last year, so it is safely locked in my brain forever.
You assume the value is just locked in.
Exactly. You assume its value is secure. But because of that neural pruning you mentioned, its actual value is dropping every single day.
The cash under the mattress is a phenomenal illusion of safety. And it isn't just internal biology causing this inflation, it is external too.
What do you mean by external?
Well, the world itself moves forward. New slang appears almost daily. Cultural references shift. Idioms evolve. The way people speak naturally changes over time.
Oh, that's true. Language is a living thing.
Right. So if you are standing completely still, you are actually moving backward relative to the natural evolution of the language. You are getting left behind.
Okay, so if doing absolutely nothing guarantees that our fluency gets eaten alive by English inflation, how do we actually stop it? In finance, you invest your money in an index fund or something that yields a return higher than the inflation rate. What is the cognitive equivalent of an index fund?
You have to input enough language on a regular basis to beat the brain's forgetting curve. And the data shows this doesn't require some massive, life-altering commitment.
So I don't need to quit my job to study.
No, not at all. You don't have to study for 4 hours a day just to maintain your baseline level. In fact, a minimum viable investment of just 10 minutes of active listening daily, like a short podcast or a news clip, is enough to signal to your brain that these neural pathways are still relevant.
10 minutes. I mean, that is the time it takes to fold a basket of laundry or, do the dishes.
It is entirely manageable, but that 10 minutes is your critical baseline investment. It is the minimum threshold required to fight off the erosion of your purchasing power.
So it's basically the maintenance fee.
Exactly. It protects the principal investment of time and effort you've already made in your education over the years.
So 10 minutes a day stops the bleeding. It keeps our cash from losing value under the mattress. But, nobody invests just to break even, right?
No, of course not.
If we want to actually get fluent, if we want to build serious language wealth, we need growth.
Yeah.
And that requires a totally different mechanism.
Which is arguably the most powerful force in both finance and human cognition. Compound interest. Albert Einstein actually called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, and for good reason. It is the engine of exponential growth.
And the vocabulary we use to describe this is a compound return that creates a snowball effect. In finance, compounding means you earn interest on your original money, and then, and this is the crucial part, you earn interest on that interest.
Right, it stacks on top of itself.
Yeah, you roll a tiny snowball down a hill, it picks up more snow, and eventually it becomes an unstoppable avalanche.
Yes, but what's fascinating here is how this mathematical concept perfectly describes the neurological process of acquiring a language. It is not about simple addition.
Okay, how so?
Well, imagine you learn 3 new vocabulary words today and you learn 3 new words tomorrow.
Basic math would say you now know 6 isolated words. But I'm guessing the brain doesn't just file them in separate, unconnected boxes.
Not at all. And this is where the snowball metaphor actually falls a bit short of how incredible the brain is. It is less like a snowball and more like a spider web.
A spider web?
Yeah. When you learn those new phrases, they start to interact. A prefix from yesterday's word helps you instantly decode the meaning of a completely new word today. You start recognizing structural patterns. You develop what linguists call morphological awareness.
Oh, wow. I see. So if I learn the root word act, I don't just know one word. I suddenly have the structural scaffolding to instantly understand action, active, react, reactor, and transaction.
Exactly.
The threads of the web connect, and suddenly learning the next word requires a fraction of the cognitive effort.
That's it, exactly. The compounding effect in your brain means that the more you know, the easier it becomes to know more. The connections themselves become a form of fluency. Your previous knowledge actively works for you to decode new information, just like your previous interest earns new interest in a bank account.
But wait, I have to push back here, because this sounds beautiful in theory, but human nature, right? Language learners are notoriously incredibly impatient.
Oh, completely. We all are.
Compound interest sounds great for a retirement fund because you have 40 years to let it grow. But if I'm learning a language, I want to watch a movie without subtitles this year.
Right. You want the payoff now.
Exactly. If I'm only learning 3 phrases a day, it feels like it'll take me a decade to see any real results. Does this math actually hold up for practical real-world fluency, or is it just too slow?
It holds up exactly because of the exponential nature of that web. But your frustration is completely valid, and it is the exact same psychological hurdle novice investors face. You look at that tiny snowball on day 1 or, day 30, and you think, this is useless. The growth is too slow.
It feels like you're getting nowhere.
So what happens? People abandon the daily habit and go searching for a shortcut. They look for the language equivalent of a get-rich-quick scheme like a magical 30-day boot camp that promises perfect fluency.
Oh, the magic pill. We all want the magic pill that lets us bypass the boring daily work.
But just like in finance, those magic pills are illusions designed to prey on impatience. They fail because you cannot force the brain to build that complex neural spider web overnight.
You can't hack biology.
No, you can't. Real fluency, like real wealth, comes from the quiet, profoundly unglamorous daily habit of showing up. You have to trust the math. Those 3 phrases today seem insignificant, but they are the seed capital.
And then the compounding kicks in.
Right. When they compound over 6 months, the growth curve suddenly shoots upward. The web becomes dense enough to catch meaning from context, even if you don't know every single word in a sentence.
Consistency over intensity. It is so hard to internalize, but it makes perfect sense. Okay, so let's say a learner is actually doing this. They're putting in their 10 minutes to stop inflation. They are slowly building their web, letting their knowledge compound day by day.
Right.
Their language, wealth, is growing.
Sounds like a solid investor.
But in the financial markets, once your wealth starts growing, you are immediately introduced to a highly sophisticated new problem.
Risk.
Right. And managing risk requires our third and final financial concept. Asset allocation.
Asset allocation is the fundamental pillar of professional wealth management. The golden rule is that professionals never put all their capital into a single asset.
That's just asking for trouble.
Exactly. If you take your entire life savings and buy stock in just one single company, you are incredibly vulnerable. If that company has a bad quarter or goes under, you lose everything.
So they use diversification to build a balanced portfolio. They spread the risk across stocks, bonds, real estate commodities, all of that.
Exactly. You spread it out so you're protected.
So what does this all mean for someone sitting at their kitchen table trying to improve their English? What are the assets in a language portfolio, and how do you actually diversify them?
Well, in language learning, your distinct assets are the 4 core skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And there is a massive, incredibly common trap that learners fall into right here.
Oh, what is it?
They find one specific skill that they feel comfortable with, and usually it is reading, and they pour 100% of their daily study time into that one asset.
Oh, this hits very close to home. It is so easy to just sit on the couch with a grammar workbook or an English novel. It feels incredibly productive. You are highlighting words, you're turning pages. You really feel like you're doing the work.
It feels productive because reading is what we call a safe asset. It has very low volatility. When you are reading a book, you are in complete control of the environment.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you don't understand a sentence, you can just stop. You can reread it. You can look up a word. The text waits for you. But look at the overall language portfolio. If 100% of your time is invested in reading, then your speaking assets and your listening assets are sitting at absolute 0.
So what does this mean when you finally leave the couch? It means you have a massive exposure to risk. Because when you actually travel abroad or, you step into a fast-paced business meeting, nobody is handing you a printed transcript of the conversation to read at your own pace.
No, they definitely aren't.
They are talking to you live. And if your speaking and listening assets are bankrupt, your overall fluency portfolio instantly crashes in the real world.
Exactly. You are highly vulnerable to the volatility of real-time communication. Real-world language is dynamic. It's messy. People have heavy accents. They mumble. They use slang. And they speak at like 150 words per minute. To survive that, you have to allocate your assets correctly.
So how do we balance the portfolio? What is the ideal split to manage this risk? Because I know our sources give us a specific target allocation for a B1 level learner.
Yes, they do.
And just to define that real quick for everyone, B1 is that intermediate plateau where you can handle most everyday situations, like ordering food, booking a hotel, but you aren't exactly ready to negotiate a complex corporate contract.
Right, you're functional, but not entirely fluent. For a learner at that intermediate B1 stage, the target asset allocation is incredibly specific. 50% of your total study time should be invested in listening, 30% invested in speaking, and only 20% invested in reading.
Wait, 50% on listening. That is half of the entire portfolio dedicated to just one skill. Why is listening weighted so aggressively compared to everything else?
Because listening is the foundational asset that enables all real-time communication. It comes down to something cognitive scientists call the phonological loop.
The phonological loop.
Yeah. When you are in a conversation, your brain has to instantly process the incoming sound wave, decode the vocabulary, understand the grammar, and then formulate a reply. If you haven't heavily trained your ear to the natural speed and rhythm of the language, that loop completely breaks down.
So you just freeze up.
Exactly. You literally cannot speak if you cannot process the incoming audio fast enough to understand what you are replying to.
That is a light bulb moment right there. Reading doesn't train the phonological loop at all. So by heavily weighting, listening, and speaking, making them a combined 80% of your portfolio, you're actively managing the risk of freezing up in a real conversation.
Exactly. If you are stuck at the intermediate plateau and you feel like you just aren't getting any better despite studying every day, it is almost certainly because your portfolio is out of balance.
You're overinvested in safe assets.
You have likely maxed out the returns on your reading asset.
Yeah.
The only way to get your overall fluency growing again is to shift your capital and aggressively invest in the lagging assets.
A balanced portfolio ensures that no matter what volatile language situation you find yourself in, whether it's quietly reading an email, struggling to understand a noisy conference call, or trying to network at a live event, you have the invested capital to handle it successfully.
It really covers all your bases.
This entire framework just strips all the guilt and the emotional guesswork out of the learning process. It is not about whether you are naturally talented at languages. It is simply a matter of being a smart, strategic portfolio manager of your own brain.
It is incredibly empowering. You are no longer at the mercy of random study habits. You have a quantifiable, actionable strategy.
Let's do a quick portfolio review for everyone tuning in. Just by listening to this deep dive today, you have successfully completed your daily active listening investment.
You really have.
You have officially outpaced inflation for the day, protected your baseline, and picked up some high-value cognitive frameworks along the way.
We covered how English inflation will erode your purchasing power through neural pruning if you don't maintain a daily habit. We broke down the snowball effect of compound interest, looking at how the brain builds those exponential webs of understanding.
The spider webs.
Right, the spider webs. And finally, we looked at asset allocation, managing your real-world communication risk through the diversification to build a heavily listening-focused learning portfolio.
It is a phenomenal masterclass in both wealth management and cognitive science.
And this raises an important question to keep front of mind as you step away from this today.
What's that?
The underlying reality of all these concepts is that every single minute you spend actively listening or practicing is a literal direct deposit into your future fluency bank account. The question is simply, are you making those deposits regularly?
A direct deposit into your future self. I love looking at it that way. And, stepping back from just language for a second. If knowledge and skill are literal assets that we must manage like a financial portfolio, it makes you wonder about the bigger picture.
Oh, absolutely.
It means our daily attention and our focus are the ultimate currency we possess. Every single morning, we wake up with a finite amount of cognitive capital. We are spending it somewhere, whether we realize it or not.
That is a very sobering thought.
So where are you choosing to spend your attention today? Are you quietly buying depreciating assets? Or are you investing your focus into something that actually compounds?
That truly is the ultimate investment strategy.
Something vital to chew on as you go about your day. Thank you for joining us on this cognitive financial journey. Happy investing.
And happy learning.